Now I'm on. There we go. Now you can hear me. Today is our fifth quarter Sunday update. I'm sorry, it's the second quarter, but it's the fifth Sunday, quarterly update, I should say. And so we got a lot of information, so we got to move through very quickly because we have the Lord's Supper this morning as well. So if we're moving through this pretty quick, I hope it doesn't seem rushed, but we got to get to the real important stuff here in a moment. So I'm going to give you some numbers update from this past quarter. We're not doing the whole year. We're just looking back to the quarter, maybe doing some totals. And so every time we do this, we just want to update you on the status of the church and how things are progressing. And of course, we always want to make sure that this is a day of thanksgiving, and we pause and build some memorial stones to remember what God has done for us. And sometimes I think we all get involved in working and churning out things, and we sometimes forget that all we do is water and plant and let God give the increase. And so let's always try to keep that in mind and be thankful for what God has done for Second Baptist Church as we move forward. So this quarter, the second quarter of this year, we've had 3 baptisms, and we've had 3 people joined by letter or statement. So we've had 6 people join in the last quarter, or the second quarter of this year, and that is a total of 15 people that have joined Second Baptist this year. Our Sunday average attendance, worship attendance, is 307 on the past quarter, and that averages out to 319 for the year. That's on Sunday morning. Wednesday night, we are averaging now, we always have a drop in the spring. We're averaging 69 or 70. For the year, we're averaging 93 on Bible study on Wednesday night. General offerings, we had an increase of the second quarter of $192,679 was general. That was the amount of the general offering in the second quarter. Brings us to a year total of $375,346. So thank you very much for your faithfulness and your giving, and we are tracking on budget for this year, so we're hanging in there. Faith Promise, the second quarter, we had a really good quarter of giving for Faith Promise. Last quarter, there was given $69,864 to Faith Promise. Year to date total given to Faith Promise is $91,223. 13% of our general offering goes to the general missions. And that this quarter was $25,048, which brings us to a year total of $48,795 of our 13% going to missions. And also the total for missions and offerings, SIMBAS, MBSF, Plainfield, second quarter given to that was $29,422, which is a total of $49,144. So those are our totals for the year, and we kind of keep trudging along. And as somebody said, I'll take 10 or 15 members a year, every year, all day long in our growth. So a couple just side notes about giving. Number one, I think Secure Give is over. So if you have not gotten onto the new giving platform, call the office this week and we'll get you switched over. And Joshua's going to give you an update on the remodel. If you would like to give to the remodel, to the freshening up of what we're doing around here, just give to the general fund. Just give extra to the general fund and it'll make its way there. And with that, Joshua, he's going to give us some updates on the remodels going on.
So everybody can see the remodels. All right, there's your update. Well, just in case to point out some of the things that you may not have seen, what we're going to do, I'll just start right here in this room and we'll work our way out because Wednesday night we had a special business meeting to entertain a pressing bid, and I'll end my section with that. So in here, you probably have noticed the black walls, white walls, all the painting that has been done. We have put in our order to replace all the purple chairs with black chairs. So if you want to see the pattern for those chairs, we have that in the office. It is a one-to-one change. I think the only thing that we won't have on the black chairs are some of our purple ones have baskets underneath them for a book. That's the only thing that we are not going to have on the new chairs. Back pocket, foam, they're the same width, and we even are replacing the ones that have arms on them. We are still entertaining carpet bids for the sanctuary. We're estimating that to be about $35,000, but that is an estimate at this time. So that takes care of what we have. When we get the carpet in, that's when we'll handle our baseboards and those sorts of things, and that should finish the sanctuary once we get carpet installed. Chairs shouldn't be here until about August or September. So that should do it for this room. Moving out, you'll notice that we have gotten the white walls painted in the foyer all the way up to the ceiling. If you haven't craned your neck to look up there, it looks a lot bigger now. But we still have a little bit of painting. The painters are not finished out there. They're still doing a little bit of touch-up. We still have the women's restroom that they need to paint. So ladies, you'll be done with that purple here shortly. Outside of that, we are also entertaining bids to remove the acid stain on the concrete floor. What we're looking at right now is just a grinding and polishing and bringing that down to the concrete color and polishing the top of that. And they're estimating that that's going to run us about $4.50 a square foot. So for a whole number estimate, about $15,000. Now the last thing that we have going on, and I will know a hard start date sometime this week, is that we are going to have our parking lot repaired and resealed. So all of those cracks, you may have noticed all of the paint lines out there. That is not utility marking. That is for augering, removing, refilling those sunken spots, those damaged areas. And we are looking at all of the parking lots. So that is going to be the lower lot, the main lot, West Mill, our side parking for the streets on Mill Street and for Locust. So all of that is going to have the cracks repaired, the potholes filled in, the low spots repaired, and everything is going to be resealed, and they are going to paint the lines for us. So really the only change with that is we may adjust a little bit of our parking structure just to better utilize the space that we have or to better accommodate the flow of traffic. So I believe that is all of the updates that we have going on for right now. If you have any questions about these or you want some firmer numbers on any of those projects, find me after services. I'll be happy to answer them.
Okay, I'm going to share the mature members report. Mature members is short, as we call them a lot of time, M&Ms. It's our senior adult group here, and it's not a group that's just gets to the point in life where we're just going to rest. We don't do that. We're very much involved. We're reaching out to others, and it's an active group. We encourage the folks that's part of the M&M group, but at the same time, we encourage the generations in this church too, because we know how important it is to see families and see the kids coming along and seeing them growing and being a part of the church and seeing them growing into responsible but church members that we can see that are going to take the message and the gospel message of Christ to the world. And so we're very much a part of that. We have a time each month set aside where we can get together and just sit down and visit with one another. It's our M&M's luncheon the first Monday at noon. And we meet in the fellowship hall. We have different things we gather together and eat, and sometimes we have food that we bring in. Sometimes we just bring the food, but it's just a good time to just visit, catch up, because even at this point in life, life gets kind of busy. Things are happening all the time. And so it's a good time just to stop and just sit down and just enjoy the time that we have with each other. So, and also, if you want to be a part of the M&Ms, because I say be a part of the M&Ms, it's not just that group. There's other ministries that you hear about and you see in your bulletin that our folks are involved in every day, doing things for other people and reaching out and to help the folks that are in the pantry, or the outreaches that we have, or the other ministries that are happening. And you'll see some of our group there, because we're invested in our church, because we know that's the path that Christ put us on, and we just want to set the example for all that follow. So if you want to be involved in this, reach out to me, and I'll be glad to clue you in and get you started.
Well, good morning. It is a privilege for me always to be able to stand before you and provide you with an update of SYMBIS. I've been gone a lot the past year, and I don't remember what's been shared of late, so I'm going to just step back a good distance and give you just an overview of kind of what's been going on that brought us to the spring of 2024. And in August of 2023, I think everyone knows we merged SYMBIS and the Amazon Project. And since that time, they have become one, and we're operating now as SYMBIS Students International Missionary Baptist Seminary School. In September 2023, Blake and I traveled to Peru, where we met with about 25 pastors and church leaders. We shared with them our desire to replicate what we've been doing in the Solomon Islands, and the response was positive, and plans were made then to begin teaching modules in March of 2024. In October of 23, we had our first graduation in the Solomon Islands. 14 pastors and church leaders graduated, representing about 10 churches in the Solomon Islands. In December of 2023, Brother Joey, Brother John, myself, and Jerry Grimes traveled to Green Mountain Missionary Baptist Church in Rutland, Vermont, for a local church teaching module. In January, we began our second 4-year cycle of instruction in the Solomon Islands. 24T1 is how we call that, and S with the Solomon Islands. Joining me were Pastor Joseph Stacks from Forest Grove Missionary Baptist Church in Taylor, Arkansas, and Pastor Nathan Llewellyn from Stockwell Road Missionary Baptist Church in Bossier City. There were about 18 pastors and church leaders present, and 3 of those are scheduled to graduate in January of 2025. In March of this year, Pastor Luis Vasquez of Saltillo, Mexico, he's doing a mission work, and I can't pronounce it in Spanish, so I'll just tell you he's doing a mission work there, planting a church. But he and Blake and John and I traveled to Iquitos for 24T1P for Peru, which was our first official SYMBIS teaching module in Peru. As expected, it was quite a train wreck logistically. And I mean train wreck. That's probably an understatement of how it really was. But overall, we had a good teaching time, and I believe it was a good start. There were about 15 to 20, and that number fluctuated daily, who came for instruction. By March of this year, I returned to the Solomon Islands. This time I had to go by myself. It just turned out that way, but for 24T2. Normally it would have been in April, but I had a quick turnaround because of an election in the Solomon Islands that they expected to be a bit contentious, and so we made the trip earlier than normal. We had about 15 to 20 in attendance. There's a couple things about this trip that were very noteworthy that I want to mention. 4 of the graduate students from October of last year were involved in the teaching process. They served as instructors, and that's a significant step in the process of those men becoming leaders and administrators in the school that one day will belong to them. You know, our theme verse, 2 Timothy 2:2, it's always been what our goal has been, to teach and train faithful men who will teach and train other faithful men. Because one day is going to come, we can't go, and we know that to be true. Another thing that was significant is we had 10 of the 14 graduates attend the first of what I hope are 8 2-day teaching sessions where they'll receive an advanced Bible diploma, and we can begin to pour into them some specific things related to leadership that we couldn't do on the first run through. In May of this year, Juan Gallegos, who's a missionary we support down in Mexico, Acuña Seminary, he traveled with me to Peru, and we had a great time teaching. We had 30 to 35 people in this class, and we had a great time instructing them. So I'll be traveling, I and someone will be traveling to Peru for the foreseeable future in the months of March, June, September, and December. And then in June of 17, June 17th, all of those people that you're going to see on this picture, we all met in Springfield to represent Second Baptist Missions, 210 Missions. And we had a great response. A lot of people came by the booth. And out in the foyer today, when you leave, there's going to be some banners and some promotional material that we distributed while we were there at the ABA meeting. And it was a great time. It was costly, but there again, we have to be in front of people for them to know what we're doing. And it was a great opportunity for us to be there. I want to say that most of the people in that picture behaved themselves the entire week, and they represented our church well. And I won't say who didn't, but I think everybody did. In closing, I want to just say that in the past several months, I've been able to make 3 deputation visits, one to Pleasant Hill in Lono, went to Oak Grove in Benton, Oak Hill in Hot Springs 2 times. But Pleasant Hill and Oak Hill both have picked us up for regular monthly support, and I think that's very good, and I'm excited about bringing on people to help us. For the rest of the year, just real quickly, Terry and I are leaving a week from tomorrow. We're going to be traveling to Australia and the Solomon Islands, attending a mission conference with a supporting church in Australia, and also attending 24T3 in the Solomon Islands. We'll be traveling back to Peru in September. In September, we have a local church teaching module we'll be conducting in Missouri. We'll be traveling back to the Solomon Islands in October. I have a teaching engagement in Mexico in November that was scheduled during the ABA meeting, and then we'll be back in Peru in December. I can't thank you enough for what you do for me and for Valerie and caring for us, supporting Simbas. And I would say probably it's all wonderful, but I'm just so thankful for what you do to care for Valerie when I'm away. And I'm very indebted to you and thankful for all that you do for us. Thank you.
Well, good morning. I have 3 reports. I'm going to start with Brother Milton. He is our MBSF director at Arkadelphia, and then also our college and career director. He sent me his report, and I will read that to you. He says, we had one student rededicate his life to Christ this last semester. 26 students consistently meet for small group Bible study. He said they have one young man that is considering the ministry. In addition, they have an average of 44 when they're meeting before they dismissed that meet on Tuesday night worship, and 37 for noonday meals. They had 7 students graduate, and that's always hard on a director, but yet we know that freshmen are arriving this fall, and he's prepping for that. So he says he was able to preach and present the MBSF ministry to 9 churches and added 1 new supporting church. He says, I want to thank you for all your partnership, both financially and prayerfully, as well as all those who visit and help with this ministry. This could not be done without you, so Sharon and I thank you. And as an associate here, I want to thank you for many of you that show up on Tuesday nights down there and also on Thursdays that help out with Milton. I'm telling you, that's a huge thing for a pastor to have church members show up. On CNC, the college and career class, which Brother Van McDermott calls the Children's Chapel, because they've adopted him into their group, says, although the CNC Reflect and Revive has paused for the summer, says, I'm excited by how some of these young members are moving forward with their personal discipleship. So they have been having small group Bible studies among the group, and they are now looking to add more. They are also making an effort to connect with our younger teens and build important relationships with them. These things, including the sermons on maturity, believing loyalty, and your individual mentorship, have allowed these students to do even more kingdom work. They have volunteered their time to go on 2 mission trips, and they have also volunteered to be cell group leaders. So Milton's doing a wonderful job, and I appreciate him. Yes, sir? Yes, and he is preaching this morning. He's on deputation this morning. That's why he could not be here, and we allowed Sharon to go with him. So, but it is hard to go by yourself. So that's where he's at this morning. Now the youth report. We had a few that did a few changes this year. Brother Blake this year is, of course, taking care of the younger youth, 6th grade and under. And we had some late sign-ups. So this year, Brother Blake, he pinch hitted, and he took the kids and had a full week of camp activities here at the church. So I know we're dismissed for the summer, but Blake has been busy. He had a church sleepover, took them to the water park. They went bowling, went to the zoo, and ended up at the Crystal Mines. And let me tell you, he's doing a great job, but it's not just Blake. It's those of you that are helping him, that sponsor, that teach on Sundays, that teach in the nurseries, that take care of those things. I know firsthand how important you guys are and vital to that younger group in the ministry that takes place there. So Brother Blake, I know he thanks you for that. The teens, they have finished up their Esther Bible study on Wednesday nights. I got to say, it's amazing how much our kids study and they prep each week. We're about to start a basic Bible study in preparation for the character study that our whole church will be taking place this December, so we're prepping for that. We had a great start to summer. They hosted a graduating seniors crawfish boil here at the church for the seniors and their family. Our teens attended Defenders Conference and also helped participate in the Defenders Conference as far as serving. We also mixed in some putt-putt activities and some bowling. But this last week, what I want to talk about, we attended teen camp at Bud Creek. And let me just tell you, our students, they're amazing. It was probably our best camp ever. The students, and I'll just share this with you. I'm going to make a couple videos. I've got a few students. Every year this happens, but, they said, Brother John, I would not be involved in ministry of any sort at Second Baptist if it was not for teen camp or a mission trip. Because when you take away cell phones and you go spend a full week with other students your age that are like-minded in faith, you grow together. And so it helps bond those kids together. So their relationships have bonded and they have grown. Not only that, and I will go ahead and brag on Milton and those college students again, they came up and were cell group leaders. And I'm telling you, we had an amazing week this week. We had 15 to 20 kids, and they could not stop talking about camp and then also the mission trip coming, so they're ready. And I appreciate all of you that are sponsoring that. So again, tonight we have the water park. And then my next report will include mission trips and things like that for the teens. Thank you so much for giving. Our youth fund is healthy, and it's because you guys love the youth group here. Brother Joey.
If you would take your Bibles, we're going to be in John chapter 1. We're going to look at 3 characters. We don't have a lot of time this morning. So we're going to look at 3 characters. We've been going through our character study. And today we're going to take a quick look at Andrew, Philip, and Nathanael. Of course it always is the same. After you start studying something, you realize how much is there. And we could spend a whole series on this section, but we got about 15 minutes. So we got to move pretty quick. These 3 characters are tied, Andrew, Philip, and Nathanael. They're tied to John chapter 1. And actually, it kind of begins with John the Baptist in John 1:29. And John the Baptist is preaching this message that Jesus is the Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world. That's basically his message, and he points Jesus out. And some of John the Baptist's disciples started following Jesus. Specifically here, 2 of them did, and one of them, his name is Andrew. And Andrew is one of the first ones that starts following Jesus as one of his disciples. Now, if you read that story, which I'm going to have to take some bits and pieces, but if you read this story, you go to John 1, chapter 1, 35 through 51, and you can read all of that section that contains all these 3 men, Andrew, Philip, and Nathanael. But let's tear this apart, and I'm just going to take a few verses as we go, and we're going to start with Andrew. Andrew asked the question, or is asked the question. Jesus asked Andrew a question, what do you seek? So very quickly, John the Baptist is preaching, points out Jesus Christ, said, behold, there's the Lamb of God that takes away the sins of the world. Andrew starts following Jesus, and Jesus then turns around and says this, what do you seek? That is in John 1, 38 and 39. And Jesus turned around and saw them following him. This is Andrew and the unnamed disciples, and said to them, what do you seek? And they said to him, Rabbi, where are you staying? And Jesus said, why don't you come and you will see? Now, this is an existential question. This isn't just a question about, hey, where are you bunking down for the night? This is an existential question that is asked. Jesus saying to Andrew, what do you want from me? And that existential simply means something that relates to the existence. So it's relating to the existence of something. So you hear the term existential crisis. That term just means there is something that's threatening the existence of, say, humanity. You know, you hear people today, politicians say, well, that's an existential crisis. They don't even know what it means. They probably can't even define the word, but they use it all the time. But what they do is they're trying to scare you into votes or money and saying, oh, this is an existential crisis, meaning humanity is going to be threatened. And so that is what an existential question is. It's concerning the existence. And so Jesus turns around and asks this question, what do you want from me? It's very much a profound question about life, about your existence. He's asking Andrew, what kind of existence do you think you will have with me? It reminds me of when Jesus was asked by one disciple, I want to follow you. And Jesus said, well, I don't even have a place to sleep. Foxes have holes, birds have nests, but I don't have anything. So it's a question about life, about the existence. We know this by the odd answer when Jesus said, what do you want? They said, where are you staying? And Jesus said, why don't you come and see where I am staying? So it is much deeper. The question always with Jesus, it's always deeper, isn't it? It's always much deeper than we initially think. But that is exactly what Jesus is saying to Andrew. If you follow me, you got to come and see what kind of existence you're going to live. And that's the question that is asked of every Christian. You crack your Bible open, you won't read it more than 5 minutes, and you will come across this question in some form or fashion, won't you? About your life, how you live, who you follow, what do you worship, what do you think this is all about? And that is the existential question that is applicable, that every Christian actually is asked, and also every Christian must answer. Because we think we just add Jesus to our life and we continue on. When Andrew asked this question, Jesus said, why don't you come and see what I expect of you? Verse 43, you have a character introduced. His name is Philip. So that's Andrew. Jesus asked Andrew, what do you want from me? And if you read the story, Jesus goes to Galilee. He finds Philip, and he just simply says, follow me. And he went to Galilee, and he found Philip. And Jesus said to him, follow me. Now, this is really some good contextual stuff that I'll try to get through very quickly. If you jump ahead to, this is John 1. If you jump ahead to John 14, verse 2, I'm going to read you a famous Bible verse that I bet you've heard before. In my Father's house are many dwelling places. If it were not so, I would have told you, for I go to prepare a place for you. Now, if you read on to John 14:8, Jesus gives this discourse. You go down to John 14:8, a few verses later, Philip asked Jesus this question, said, Lord, show us the Father, and it is enough for us. John 14:8. Philip's wanting some assurance that Jesus is the Son of God. And Jesus said to him, said to Philip, Philip, have I been so long with you, and you have not come to know me? He who has seen me has seen the Father. How can you say, show us the Father? And then John 14:16 is where it really gets interesting. So Jesus said, I will ask the Father, because the context here is Jesus telling him he's going to go away, his death. And Philip's concerned about that, about Jesus leaving, abandoning them. So John 14:16 said, Jesus said, I will ask the Father, and he will send you another helper, that he may be with you forever. Verse 17, this is the Spirit of truth, or the Holy Spirit, whom the world cannot receive, because it does not see him or know him, but you know him because he abides in you and will be in you. And here it is, verse 18. I love this verse. And Jesus said, I will not leave you an orphan. I will come to you. You see that? So Andrew is asked, why don't you, or when he said, I want to follow you, why don't you just come and see? What are you looking for? Philip says, follow me. We don't hear anything from him in John chapter 1, but later in John 14, he asked the typical question that we all ask. Does he not? You remember when you were saved, or you're going to dedicate your life to serve God? You know what you said? I said the same thing. I asked the exact same question John asked. Lord, if I surrender to preach, I'm going to follow you. Can you kind of give me some guarantees here? Can you kind of give me a status of what's going to happen of all this unseen stuff? Can you provide me with a sense of stability and security and direction? Can you provide me with some kind of plan? And Jesus said, do you think I'm going to leave you an orphan? We look around at our church, and I know some people still are reserved, they're hold back, they're afraid to commit. And they don't all want to jump in because they believe it's going to be too costly. The problem is probably they just haven't really evaluated what Jesus has done for them already. Don't you think you can trust him? It's the biggest problem in Christianity. And church members, they're just afraid to let go of their material things, time, money, whatever it may be, because they just don't trust him. He's going to leave me an orphan, homeless. Isn't it interesting that Andrew said, where are you staying? And Jesus said, I go to prepare a place for you. You see the kind of bookend there. And so Jesus answers to the disciple about a dwelling place. That's Andrew. Philip is concerned about a father. Andrew's concerned about a place. Philip's concerned about a father. And so what he tells Philip, I will never leave you. Even if you die, I've prepared a place for you. You see it? Like I said, I wish we had more time. Let's move to Nathanael because it gets even better. And we got to move quick. Nathanael asked Jesus, how do you know me? I like that one too. If you read these verses, verse 45, so Jesus finds Philip. Philip finds Nathanael. Philip goes to Nathanael and said, we have found him of whom Moses and the law and the prophets spoke about, Jesus of Nazareth, son of Joseph. And this is a famous verse where Nathanael said, what? Nazareth? And I think Nathanael knew who Jesus was, small area. Jesus, the son of Joseph, from nothing good comes out of Nazareth. Nothing there. What does Philip say? Repeated the same words. Well, why don't you come and see? Why don't you come check it out for yourself? And so Nathanael did, and Jesus sees Nathanael coming at a distance, and Jesus says to him, verse 47, said, here is a man, Jesus speaking of Nathanael, a man who has found no deceit. Now that's important. We'll come back to it later. A man who's found no deceit. Nathanael said, well, how do you know me? It's kind of the same deal where Jesus saw Nathanael sitting under the tree, knew private things about him, like the woman at the well. Do you remember the woman at the well? Jesus came up and told her things about herself that no one else knew. Same thing with Nathanael. Jesus said, I know who you are. You have no deceit in you. And Nathanael said, how do you know that? And that's when Jesus said, well, I saw you sitting under the tree. In verse 49, just from that simple statement, I saw you under the tree, probably some private things, Nathanael's life. Nathanael said in verse 49, Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel. And Jesus basically said, are you kidding me? That's it? That's all it takes? That impressed you? Look what he said in verse 51. Jesus said to Nathanael, truly, you're going to see more than that. Truly, you're going to see the heavens open and the angels of God descending and descending on the Son of Man. But Nathanael said in the Bible, the one guy without deceit or guile or trickery, he's not the only guy, but the one guy here that is truly looking for the Messiah of Israel. He is truly looking. But then what does this verse 51 mean? Nathanael, you're going to see the heavens open up and angels descending, ascending and descending. What is that? Well, you know the Old Testament story. You know what Jesus is referring to. He's referring to Jacob. You heard of Jacob's ladder? Jacob, remember the story of Jacob where the heavens opened up and he saw the angels going up and down? Well, what does Jacob's name mean? Trickster, swindler, deceiver, heelster, someone that grabs someone else's heel. But what did he say about Nathanael? There's no trickery in you. There's no deceit or guile in you. But then Jesus takes him back to the story about Jacob. And it's basically this. If Jacob, a trickster and a swindler, and the one who struggled to understand what God, if a man truly looking for God finds him, oh, you're going to see some great things. Do you see what Jesus is saying? There's no guile and deceit in you. You are going to see things that no one else has ever seen before. And so, persons decides to follow Christ. They're like Nathanael. It's usually not what they expect. That is why, when you culminate all this together, if you go to Matthew's version of the gospel, he calls these men in chapter 4, he calls the first disciples, that same group, James and John, Peter and Andrew, he calls this first initial group, that's in chapter 4. And you know what Matthew chapter 5 is? It's the Sermon on the Mount. It's the Beatitudes. So he calls the first group and then he gives them a sermon. Here's what you can expect from your life of following me. And let me give you some highlights. You're to be poor in spirit. You're to mourn and be gentle and hunger for righteousness, merciful, peacemakers. You're to be rejoicing and glad when you're persecuted and insulted. You are the salt of the earth and the light of the world. He teaches about anger, reconciliation, lust, and he goes on and on and on. That's what you can expect. See, these young men, Andrew and Peter, and even Philip and James and John, Nathanael, they all knew what the religious leaders of the day expected of them. Keep the law, the synagogue, the Sabbath, all of that kind of stuff. And Jesus says, but if you're going to follow me, here's my expectations of you. See, we always have a bunch of expectations of God, don't we? We always expect God to do things, but actually it's in the reverse. We need to be seeing what God expects of us. What do you want from me? What did he say to Philip? Follow me. And when Nathanael said, how do you know me? Jesus said, I know who you are. I know exactly. I know every dark secret about you. I know everything in your mind and everything that you harbor that no one else knows, but follow me. And so we finally end here. What do we do? I think a lot of times in Christianity, we seek God for the byproduct. We seek God because we want a better marriage, we want to be better parents, we want to have a more peaceful life, get us out of some trouble or trial, help with our finances, our career. We're struggling with contentment or anxiety or whatever it is. And so I'll follow God and he'll fix all that stuff. Well, you can't separate all of that. I mean, that is all good. These are all good things. But we don't seek that. See, I think we got too many Christians seeking the byproducts of following God. Does that make sense? They don't want to be devoted, committed, serve, and sacrifice. They just kind of want to do enough to get some of the byproducts. But here's what we do in Matthew chapter 6, 33 and 34. But seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and then all of the byproducts will be added to you. Then all of this stuff will come. So don't worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will take care of itself. Each day has enough trouble on its own. So there's the conclusion that we come today. We love God, we seek his kingdom and righteousness, and let him take care of the rest. You cannot force or motivate anybody to serve God. And I think I've been guilty sometimes of kind of persuading people to follow God, and I give them the list of the byproducts, right? Follow God because he'll be change your life, make you a better father, husband, citizen, whatever it may be. And I've said those things before. No. You follow God because you're to have a transformative life, to seek Him, to have a relationship with Him. He is your Father. You will never be an orphan, and you're to be committed to Him, and then let all the byproducts come. Does that make sense? That's what these young men are learning here. So we're going to go ahead and enter our time of the Lord's Supper. Blake is going to officiate that this morning. So Blake, if you would come forward. And I'm going to ask, if you are a church member, we do practice closed communion.